Welcome back. I'm calling the meeting of the Arlington Finance Committee to order. I'd like to welcome everybody back after a long time off, but we're get started on the next 5 months. And in my opinion, the next 5 months will be very important for the future of our town on many different levels. And you could probably tell some of that by the weight and number in the warrant. Over 80 articles. So fortunately, a lot of those are not ours, but we'll still be voting as town meeting members for many of you. I'd like to introduce, we have 3 new members to the committee. First one is John Ellis, and he's not here yet, so hopefully he'll walk in. The second one is Annie LaCourte. And the third one is new guy, Dean Carmen, has decided to come back. Slight cut in pay, but you know. Welcome back, Dean.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. John? Okay. John Ellis is our third new member of the Finance Committee. You remember him when he came before us, I think it was last year, on the tree report, the tree inventory. So, welcome, John.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, since then, we've lost 2 members, so plus a vacancy in Precinct 4. So we'll be down 3 members this year, and so we'll just have to pull together and get the work done. And I think that we'll be able to do that. However, remember, we need to have a quorum to start this, and it is very embarrassing to have people waiting here for a quorum to come in. So I'm urging all of you, please, try to be here at 7:30, and let me know if you can't make it. But please try to be here. Like I said, we'll be down 3 people. We're into election season again, and I wanted to remind everybody of the political rule of the Finance Committee Appointing Authority that we don't get publicly involved with local elections. Now, this doesn't count for referendums. It only accounts for races for moderator, selectmen, school committee, town clerk, so the local political races, and generally don't get publicly involved. I don't want to see anybody holding signs, signing petitions, signing ads, or writing letters to the editor. The reason why the Finance Committee Appointing Authority has had this rule really since 1980 is they don't, the integrity and of the Finance Committee is critical. We don't want to be associated with any particular faction or individual. We want to be seen as neutral and as giving advice that's not colored by any, like I said, group or person. So please, if you can follow this on, if you want to stuff envelopes or something like that, that's fine, but just not publicly get involved with that. Okay, review contact list. Everybody should have the contact list in front of them. I assume everybody's had a chance to review this. If there's any mistakes or errors, everybody have it. Why don't you take a minute just to go through it quickly. And if there's any mistakes, just call them out and we'll correct them on paper so Liz doesn't have to destroy more trees. They should have both your home email and your town emails. If you're sending anything on town business, what I do sometimes is I just CC my town email, so that way it's all getting stored. So somehow it should be, remind you all again too, we can exchange emails to a group if it involves strictly administrative work. Like I'm saying, okay, we're having this meeting, who cannot be there? You could respond to that. It's strictly administrative work, but cannot discuss policy issues by email. Open meeting law and all that kind of stuff. Secondly, we will probably, I talked to Doug Heim, our town council, we will probably have to do our conflict of interest online course again, but I'm waiting to hear back from him. But it seems to me it's been at least 2 years since we've done that in the past. There's two parts to it. One is you have to sign a form saying you've received all the data, the information. So that's just you've received it. Whether you read it or not is up to you, but you should. And then the second thing is when you go on, I think it's the Attorney General's website, and you get this email and you go through all the courses and read the case studies and answer the questions. So it's a requirement of being a town employee, which we all are. Okay, does anybody see any errors that you want to correct on the contact list? Okay, great. So that's done. Take a look at the calendar. There's 2 pages. So Liz will keep this up to date. So right now we have a hearing at 8:15, half hour. So I'll stop whatever we're doing at that point. We'll hear the Open Space Committee. They're seeking an appropriation of $300, and we all have a little handout from them. Basically, we're hearing from people or committees and commissions that either got no money last year and now they want some money, or they got some money last year and now they want more. So I think Liz handed out a listing. So tourism and economics, same as they got last year. Flags on Graves is the same. Human rights is the same. Envision Arlington is the same. Scenic Byways the same. Veterans Memorial Patriots is the same. Arlington Commission on the Arts and Culture, after steady growth, they want the same. They wanted 40, which is what we gave them last year. And Town Days, no change. So these are the ones that Liz has already gotten a hold of. We can vote at those at some point when we get to that article. So on Wednesday, this coming Wednesday, the town manager will be here to go over the long-term plan. Now, we have gotten some additional Chapter 70 that was somewhat unexpected. So he'll go into that and the options we might choose. The Long Range Planning Committee has not made final decisions to recommend to you, but the manager will go through sort of the 2 options and see it. I mean, it's good news, but yet we have to decide how that goes. And then after the manager, now also I am going to ask the manager if he could review each of the warrant articles that he has submitted that have finance implications. So you might want, we'll go through the warrant today, but think of questions for that. So if all the questions are answered on a manager article, we can just go ahead and vote them and get them done. The more we can get out of the way earlier in the process, the less stressed we are towards the end of March to get everything done. Which is to say, the less stressed I am to make sure everything gets done. So please, we'll go through those. And then town budgets. We'll start reviewing town budgets on getting those. So remember the policy we took last year is that if there's a vacant position in the budget and it doesn't, the vacant position salary for next year does not start at entry level. You should ask the question, why? Why isn't this position starting as entry level? Now, it's not that we're second guessing the department heads, but we don't want somebody to just automatically put them at max. That has a self-fulfilling prophecy on it. This is not big dollars, but we want the manager to know we're looking at it. I mentioned it to Sandy, the deputy town manager, who puts together the budget. So, like I said, you see a vacant position, it's starting above entry, just ask why. And get the reason from him, because it'll probably be asked of you when the budget comes back before the the department. Now, a week from today is, I still call it Washington's birthday. We will not meet on Washington's birthday, or President's Day, I guess, today, but I'm old-fashioned. I'll go with Washington's birthday. So the 18th we will not meet. We will meet on the 20th. We'll have the CPA committee is coming before us, Community Preservation Act, and that's usually a good group, and they'll go through all that. So that'll take a good part of it. And then after that, as you see it, we have a committee hearing on the 27th. Then as we get into March, we have the Arlington High School Building Committee is coming to us on March 4th. Now, that is going to be a big hearing. I hope everybody's been following this. Amy has been reporting online about all the results and minutes and things like that of the Permanent Town Building Committee. Charlie and Foskett and I have played Grinch. We've done tag team to beat on them to keep the prices down. So we'll see how they're done. I think they've gone with a final number of $291,700,000 or something like that. Annie, did you have a?
Are we going to hold that meeting in a venue that accommodates the potential for the public showing up?
For the
public to show up?
All our meetings are public.
No, I know all our meetings are public, but if 20 people wanted to sit in this room, they'd have a hard time. I'm asking whether or not we're going to move that to some hall that would allow for a small audience to easily.
No. We'll try to bring in, Liz can bring up chairs from downstairs, and we'll accommodate as many people as we can. But this is it's not a necessarily public hearing, it's a hearing for the Finance Committee to meet with the Building Committee. Grant, did you have a question? No, sorry. Got to be careful when you reach back to. On the 8th will be the Capital Budget Committee, and now we still have the school committee, or not the school committee, but the school department. So Christine and Dean, if you could coordinate who and get them to come in. Now we're keeping the last week free, so I don't want to have any hearings on the last week because that gives us time to clear up everything and get that settled. Stephen, Annie, could you arrange for Minuteman to come in one of those days?
Not in the last week or in the last week? Not in the last week.
Not in the last week. No. So you're talking, we've got free the 11th and the 13th. So actually, those 2 weeks, the week of the 10th and the week of the 17th, usually the school committee likes to come in, so try to nail them down first. The superintendent of Minuteman probably has a little bit more flexibility, but so actually you four might want to coordinate it, or you two, so that we don't have them coming in the same day, because the school committee is usually school department's usually a full night. Minuteman maybe not quite so much, but and also remember to remind Ed that we would like the presentation material for the FinCom a week ahead of time if possible, but at least 2 days ahead of time. We'd like town meeting for that. Okay, and then hopefully we wrap up everything on the 25th and the 27th, and then it's up to Liz, myself, and Alan to pull together the Finance Committee report. Early April. Like to save that to have some flexibility, but what we do is we wait for the House Ways and Means Committee to come out, finalize our numbers, and go to print. Usually the numbers are a couple bucks off, and Alan and I have usually been given the flexibility to take care of that. On the other hand, if it's a lot off, and I don't know if you saw it, but in the Globe today had a big article on Chapter 70, and I was waiting to see if Arlington was in there, but it wasn't. But a lot of this money going to the, I guess, 10 or 11 sort of gateway cities. And a lot of the others are not happy with that. So whether we are actually able to keep that Chapter 70 money will be an interesting, it's really difficult for legislators to take money away from somebody. But of course, if you're going to give more money, that means you've got to have the money to give. So that's a challenge too. So that's our calendars. Anybody have any questions on it? Yeah, Annie?
I'm out of town the first week in April. I'm out of town the first week in April.
I probably will be too. So, so usually that's why I try to save that last week in March to finalize everything. Just be as flexible as you can in case something comes up at the last minute. If April, no, we don't have an April. So probably like the second week in April, the House Ways and Means Committee usually comes out with its report. So that might be a time when we'll need, but I'll get that to you when we get closer to it. Okay, any other questions on the calendar? Contact list, anybody find any errors? If you find any errors when you get home, just make a note of it and we can jot that up. Vacant policy, hearing. Well, not quite yet. Well, let's take a look at the warrant. And for those of you who follow the list and the paper, there's been a lot of discussion. So that's why we have so many. So the first one, two, let's see. I think it's like 20. Okay, so the first 25 articles are zoning and miscellaneous. Now, the Finance Committee has historically not gotten involved with zoning unless we think it's going to have a huge immediate impact on the town's finances. So you, of course, are free as individual town meeting members or to speak on those in town meeting. If anybody has something that they think will meet that very high threshold, bring it up at the next meeting. Okay, so starting with Article 26 on page 8. Now again, these are mostly the selectmen articles. They deal with bylaws and again, all the miscellaneous. So here, but sometimes the Finance Committee pops in. Sometimes we might add in if we really think this is important from a financial point of view. Finance Committee supports the recommendation of the Board of Selectmen or something like that. Okay, billboards and signs. So we don't want to hear that. Town meeting speaking times. That should be interesting. Recycling committee. Regulation of those foam containers? Yeah, okay. Surprised it doesn't say straws. That's the big thing now. Water line replacement. Okay. Community Preservation Committee. Okay. Tree protection and preservation. Okay. Should be interested in that, John. Notice.
More money.
Yeah.
If they make this change, it'll be a revenue enhancer for the town, but nothing like.
Well, there's no appropriation. No call for an appropriation here, so we'll see. Notice of demolition. Outdoor lighting, dark skies bylaw. That should be interesting. It's I was in Sedona many years ago, and their bylaw is that you couldn't have an outdoor light greater than 45 watts, and it had to be covered, so it only pointed down. So I don't know if we'll get to that. Short-term rental regulations. Vote election modernization study group. remove lead police chief from public civil service.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I have a question about Article 35.
okay.
So I assume that this is, what is it called? The
Airbnb.
Airbnb.
Yeah.
So don't we get taxes from Airbnb? Or don't we have hotel taxes?
I believe that we should be receiving,
Starting this year.
yeah.
Yeah,
So-
it might be a local option.
Does this have an effect on taxes that we'll get, the revenues that we'll get?
Short-term rental regulations. Require inspection, registration of the I would assume so, yes.
Might have an impact on the inspection budget.
True, so we got a cost. And, so would you like to hear it?
I think we should.
Okay,
Yeah, definitely.
everybody else? Okay, so, Liz, could you call? So we're gonna have a hearing. Article 35, short-term regulations. Trying to think of who, the select board is putting this forward. Could ask the manager too, on Wednesday, about that, okay? Civil service, okay. Vote set senior tax deferment limit.
Seems like we ought to hear it.
I'm sorry?
Seems like we ought to hear it.
Uh,
Am I crazy?
Yeah, there are 43 and 44 are all, 38, 43, and 44. Looks like some have some tax implications for seniors.
okay, so 38. Hearing. Deaccession town property liability, I don't think we need to hear that. Parking, library parking costs. See if the town vote to change the cost of parking in spaces behind. Okay.
Probably want to lower it.
Oh, I'm sure. The thing is, we don't get the town doesn't get the money from in front of the library, only gets the side.
That money goes into the benefit district.
I'm sorry?
That doesn't go into the general fund, it goes into the parking benefit district.
Yeah. It's probably small potatoes, but anybody want to hear it?
I could always ask. I have to go see the trustees tomorrow, so I can ask them.
Okay, why don't you ask them, and why don't we ask the manager when he comes in? Okay. Arlington Redevelopment Board member terms. Okay, home rule legislation. Vote to authorize the request of the select board to file. Okay, I don't think that's, sounds administrative.
I have a
Okay,
question.
Sure.
If that doesn't pass, does Dean Carmen become treasurer again?
I don't think so. I don't think so. Okay, now here's the other exemption for seniors. So,
Yeah, and 44,
and 44.
CPA.
It's not just like last year, so we have, I think we have notes on last year. It's not just like last year's articles, so, but they're important, so we should.
Okay. So Liz, why don't you call Marie at the Selectmen's and find out who might be able to speak to Article 38 and 43. Those are the select board. And why don't you call 44, the first name, and see if they could come in. Okay. Article 45. Okay, we could avoid that. 46.
Yes.
Acceptance of legislation commission on, disability fund. Okay. Regarding allocating all funds received from fines assessed violations of handicap parking. Okay, so this will, I assume all violations of handicap parking go into the general fund.
Yes.
So this is to divert this into a Commission on Disabilities. Do we appropriate money for the disabilities?
I don't think we had any requested last year.
No, let's see it. I'm not sure how much money this is. Could be not much. Anybody
Yes.
want to hear it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not a lot of money, but I think it's a matter of policy. We've always heard any article that talks about diverting money out of the general fund.
Okay. Okay, so Liz, Commission on Disabilities. I thought we appropriated money to them.
We did years ago, I think.
Yeah, we appropriate $3,000 to the Commission on Disability. So get a hold of them and ask them if they could please come in. Acceptance of legislation. Oh, this is cable access.
This is diversion from general fund again.
Yeah, did you hear it?
Well, 48 is the appropriation.
Seems to me we dealt with this a year or two ago. Okay, do you want to hear it?
Yes.
Okay. Actually, what we can do is, since it's the manager's budgets, we can ask him on Wednesday.
I believe there may be some significant changes to the laws about
Yeah,
funding.
well, it could very well be. I think, if I remember correctly, funds which used to flow to cable television, because of changes in the statutes or regulations or something, now have to go to the general fund. I think that was something like that, so this could have something to do with that.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, local option taxes, that's sort of our article the Finance Committee puts in every year in case something comes up at the last
Right.
minute.
But this year, one, it might be Airbnb and it might be a marijuana tax. So, I mean, it could be significant this year.
Yeah. Okay, well, here's local option short-term rental impact fees.
Okay, that's Airbnb.
Okay. Now, quite often, one of these is either pushed by the manager or by one of the Board of Selectmen has a particular interest in it. So we need to find out who and ask them to come. Okay, CBG is Selectmen, revolving funds is Selectmen. Okay, the endorsement of the parking meters. Now, that's the manager again. So I think we can have a very busy schedule with the manager on Wednesday, so,
Mr. Chairman?
yes.
On 53 and 54, doesn't the Finance Committee have to approve those transfers?
Yes. Yeah, so it's, yeah, in fact, I had those deliberately taken out of where they were in the warrant order and put back here as the start of the Finance Committee article. So we need to do that. Position reclassification, unfortunately Carolyn isn't here. So now we're into the collective bargaining article. So again, that's the manager. Budgets, capital budget, and we've got that scheduled for March. Rescission, that's part of the capital budget presentation. Appropriation Transportation Infrastructure Fund. Okay. That's the manager. Were you aware of this, Troy?
No.
Okay. It almost sounds like it was a grant. Maybe not. Okay, so, and any of these that have the town manager, really focus on it and think of the questions that you might have. And I will call the manager tomorrow morning and give him forewarning that, we'll be going through all the manager articles. Water and sewer will be grants. By the way, do you have your budgets ready yet, Grant?
Working on
Okay. Minuteman, we'll have to have the superintendent come before us. Committees and commissions. So Liz is working on connecting with all the commissions and committees that we've appropriated money to in the past. Our standard policy has been if they're asking for the same money, they don't have to come in. If they're asking for more money or new money, then we have them come in and justify it. Town celebrations and events. I think that pretty much is the same. Okay, Patriots Day is the same. Flags on graves is the same. Display of flags on Mass Ave. What we did for there. Town Day celebration is the same. Veterans Day. Okay. Okay, and we can get rid of that. Water bodies. So Liz, can you get a hold of the I'm trying to remember who's the point man on that point committee?
The Conservation Commission.
Okay, so Liz, if you can get a hold of the Conservation Commission, and if you can't get a hold of somebody there, call Therese DeBenedictis in Public Works, because she, provides all the data and stuff anyway. So see if you can get them in. Community Preservation Act, we're hearing. Oh, Charlie.
What about Article 66?
Sorry, did I miss that? Oh, miscellaneous. That's we usually treat that the same way we do 65 and 64. If it's the same.
Is it?
We haven't. I haven't gone through the budget yet to see. Usually, the indemnification of police officers is a set amount. And we appropriate that, and I should just keep this out. Miscellaneous. So last year it was really the legal defense fund, which was zero, and the indemnification of medical costs. So we just need to get that figure. It's probably in the budget. I haven't caught that yet. And we can just go ahead and appropriate that unless they want more money.
Same as last year?
I'm sorry?
You indemnity of the police officers?
Yeah.
Page 205 of the budget, looks like it's the same.
9399? Tell you what, can you call Sandy tomorrow and confirm that? It's highly unusual that it's the exact same number. I mean, because this is for, it's sort of like workers' comp, but they've got to go through all the other insurances each of the individual officers have before they can tie into this. So it's usually small dollars. But yeah, give Sandy a call and see what he says. Okay. Miscellaneous, water bodies, Community Preservation Fund. So they'll be coming in a week or so. Harry Barber Service Committee. Have you contacted them? Okay, so could you contact the Council on Aging? If they're asking for the same amount of money, does anybody want want them to come back in? Okay, so find out if they're asking for the same amount of money. I think we can let that go. Okay, the appropriation for pensions. Okay, the next two articles, we usually wait for the pension appropriation to look at those. And so Charlie, we'll look for you to report on those.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, Dean.
On 71, the OPEB, so when we had our audit committee meeting,
Oh, okay.
we learned that town manager's office was starting to think about what we're going to do when we get to the end of pension funding. And the obvious answer that we've also implied, we're gonna start working on OPEB.
Yep.
And what we started to realize, and it kind of makes sense, is if we actually adopt a formal policy in regard to that transition, then we can actually drive on the balance sheet for the town, the audit financials drive down, drive to the OPEB liability. We're identifying the funding source at a certain date on those actuarial schedules. So I think in terms of this article, when the subcommittee meets, we probably should ask the town manager's office what's going on with it.
Okay. Did they have a new report on the unfunded actuarial liability of the OPEB?
The every other year report, I think they did it this year.
Okay. And when are we fully funded on the pension? Not sure.
34? 33? It's out there still.
Yeah, so does that strike a bell?
About right. I think the legal limit's around 38 or 40.
Yeah. It's been my belief that, and I'm hardly in the league with state mandates, but that the state should just mandate every time a city or town gets to fully funded on their pension system, pick a number, 80% should go right, of the savings should go right into the OPEB fund. And if you pass that now, when nobody around today is going to be in office in 2035, it should be easy to do. If you wait until 2034, mayors and selectmen are just waiting to spend that money. Maybe that's a little unfair, but yes. We could pass a bylaw, I suppose. Town of Arlington could pass a bylaw that says when the pension fund is fully funded, pick a number, 80% has to go directly into OPEB. Could be a thought. And like I said, we're talking about what? 15 years from now.
Yeah, the importance of it though is if you remember when there were years ago where the way it worked on our balance sheet, which goes to the bond rating agencies, that as long as you were making the minimum contribution, you didn't get the liability put on. So the pension liability never went on. And then when they required us to put the health insurance liability on, we were only getting hit with the charge for the amount we didn't make on the pension funding schedule. Then they changed the rules and they said the whole liability had to go on for both the pension and the OPEB. So as we make the pension payments, that liability goes down, the OPEB payments keep going up, right? Because year 1 drops off and year 31 comes on. The reason they realize this is important is if you identify it as a funding source, then what you're saying is on the pension funding schedule, for years 2019 to 2034, we have no funding, but for years 2035 to 2049, we do have funding. Thus, the net OPEB liability on the balance sheet, which goes to the rating agency, goes down. So I think it's an important discussion to start to have, and I know the town manager's office was talking about it.
Okay. And we could talk about maybe an idea of passing a bylaw that requires it. Might impress the rating agencies, might not, because you can always repeal it, I suppose. Okay, are our people here? Okay, so I'm going to leave it at that spot. I'm sorry.
Just go back to that. I'm wondering if this is legal defense fund, this appropriation.
Oh, that's the Mugard. 17-0. Oh, so we do have a budget request for 25,000.
I guess that'll be legal defense fund.
Yeah?
What article was that?
Well, it's in the manager's budget, page 204.
Yeah, it's a new item that probably ends up in legal defense fund.
Or we could just appropriate it into the legal budget, or we could put it here. Okay, another question for the manager. Okay, let's cut it at 71. We'll come back to it. Meanwhile, pull out your papers on the Open Space Committee.
Well, this is mine. I think it's one.
Yeah, it's it's two-pager.
Hi,
Hi, welcome.
thank you.
Please sign in and grab a chair. Is there just the two of you?
Yes.
Okay, great.
You're signed in.
You are signed in. Good. Our executive secretary is very efficient.
Yep. We're all set.
Wednesday. Okay, well, welcome before the Finance Committee. I see this year you're requesting a total of $300 to be appropriated to your committee. Have you asked for funds before? I didn't see them last year.
No, we've never had a budget. We've just kind of limped along and gotten volunteer donations when we've needed to do a few things. But we've worked with the planning department, and a few times they've underwritten projects or things that we, that we've needed funding. And so what we're asking for is just kind of like small operating stuff, just to have the town.
Well, could you introduce yourselves?
Oh, yeah,
and then,
sorry.
Give the rationale for the committee.
Sure. I'm Ann LaRoyer. I'm the chair of the Open Space Committee. And
John Pickle.
is a member, one of our members. We have 10 members. The list is on your sheet that I think you have. So, like I said, we're kind of under the auspices of the planning department, and we've been around since 1996. The major responsibility that we have is putting together the open space plan. I'm sure you're familiar with it. It's all up on the website, and I've given you the web addresses and so forth to look at. So that is only done now every 7 years, and the funding for that has come in the last 2 cycles that I've been involved with it. It's from the CDBG funding. Through the planning department have applied for a planning grant, and that's been like $10,000 to $15,000. That's a lot of work, hiring a planning consultant to help the committee, which is all volunteer, and the planning department put this together.
So the production of that, the cost came out of planning?
No, from the CDBG accounts. So the next time that we have to do it is 2022, and so we're already starting to think about alternative places to look for funding for that. But that's totally separate from what we're asking for, just sort of operating money, $300 to, we have our own Town Day booth, and in the past, we've just paid for it, by people within the committee, and last year, the planning department paid for it for us, but we just figured it was time for us to, perhaps have our own budgets, and then we could have some funding for preparing handouts and printing and just, normal kind of communications. And then a special project, which John can talk about, is the picture post, which is a kind of a new project that we've, again, been doing more or less on a volunteer basis, but we'd like to expand it and have a little more secure funding to be able to expand it. So maybe John can talk a little bit about that.
This is a project that started about 13 years ago through NASA funding. I was a principal investigator for a grant, and we were looking for a way to help people understand the rich data in digital images, not just satellites. So we started, well, why not a camera? And so Friends of Menominee Rocks Park helped develop this It's basically an octagonal cap with a 4-foot post, well, 7-foot post, 3 feet underground, and that's the major cost right there, was just, putting it in the ground. And then people bring their own cameras to the post. And we have an app for an iPhone, so it takes all of about a minute. You take the first picture due north, northeast, and just all the way around. Last one straight up. You either get sky cover or canopy cover. And then there's a free website to store the data in an organized way so scientists can use it. In particular, it's important for ground truthing satellite data, especially during green up season where you don't know what is actually greening up. Is it the tree canopy? Is it the herbaceous layer or the shrub layer? And so it really helps a lot with that. But when you piece it together, you get a beautiful environmental picture of what's going on from regional to national scale. In addition, it's really useful for monitoring how our open spaces are doing. So there's a benefit not just externally but internally, and then it's a rich data set for schools to use, because if you go to a park at one period in time, you really don't know how it's changed. But here, kids can prepare either beforehand or after and see what they saw, what was it like a week later, 2 weeks later. It's pretty fascinating to watch how nature changes.
And it's a great way to engage people in using the open spaces and getting out there and, on a regular basis. There are some people that are really, go back over and over and
Yes.
would like to have more sites where they can be, these posts can be put up and, be able to
Some
engage
examples
people.
of what you would see over time in various.
This is Bill's fund, I guess.
Yes, this is from Anonymous Rock. So we have 7 currently in Arlington, and we're hoping to have funding provided. Everything, part of the funding would be 2 a year to go into additional open spaces around Arlington.
Okay, have you had any, well, why don't you finish your presentation, then that's pretty much it.
Just one other thing I'll mention, I handed out this draft map of walking routes. This is a project that our committee's been working on for a while, and this, so we want to promote this. We already have one section of the map, the East Arlington, the red part here, is already up online on the town's website on the Open Space Committee. And we've distributed at Town Day last year. We also had another small map for part of the Heights that we distributed at Town Day. And so we've been working to map out the whole town with suggested walking routes that link all of the open spaces and other interesting historic sites and so forth. So we want to promote that. Put it up on the website. People can use it on their smartphones as they're walking around town, or just to get ideas about, thinking about the connections of the open spaces to other parts of town. And so this is just an example of the kind of thing that we need, a little bit of money for, to do printing and, distribution of materials and so forth. So it's pretty simple stuff, but just a way for us to help us communicate a little more systematically.
Okay, so you're handing that around. Okay, are there any questions for the committee from the committee? Christine?
Did you get the funding for the ones that have already been set up?
Through the grants that we had through NASA and then NSF, but those, that was over a stretch of 13 years. Funding has dried up. So it's just now a volunteer effort.
But, yeah, the ones that you put up at the reservoir, you just...
I paid for those.
Yeah, and then we had volunteer labor that...
It's about $70 a post.
That's very cool. Good stuff.
Any other questions? Have any of these been vandalized?
Only one. And then that took a little extra resources. Basically carried up Quikrete, powdered concrete that you pour water in, so that we put that at the base, and hasn't been moved since.
Probably most vandals look at it and try to figure out what the heck is this.
Well, we often have instructions on it, but they do wear out, so I have to periodically update the instructions.
Yeah.
Oh, they know it's vandalizing.
I'm sorry?
So they know if they're vandalizing?
Yeah.
It's kind of, you know, the one, it's the one in, you know, it was a party place in Monotony Rocks, and you could just tell that they were looking for a challenge. And we made it so it was challenge proof. I mean, I hate to say it, you know, get it out there on TV or something, but, you know, give them a challenge, but it's pretty much in there now.
The only thing I can think of is the movie 2001, where right at the beginning this obelisk, you know, appears. Okay.
They're pretty discreet.
That's true too. We try to put them not, you know, taking up prime real estate.
Yep.
Is that my dog?
If it probably was Raleigh. He was always with me on most of the shots. But Destry and
So one person would set up their camera and take
9 shots.
9 shots. How long would that take them?
With the apps, about 30 seconds to a minute.
Okay.
Here,
So
but it's really efficient, and the website is hosted out of University of New Hampshire, and we're working on shipping it to another scientist who has new funding and an expanded effort to the University of Oklahoma. But the site will still be free.
Okay. This is great. Thank you. Any other questions for the Open Space Committee? Okay. Well, thank you very much for coming. We
You're
really
very
appreciate
welcome.
your time, and
Thank you.
you know, thank you for all your efforts.
Thank you. Look forward to hearing from you.
John, I think you should donate one of those to the Arlington Historical Society to make sure that it's recorded that it was invented in Arlington.
Oh, I have the original caps, you know, just for that reason. I'm trying to see, was it your dog?
The other one. And the guys? Is that our guys? Oh, no, that's a person. All right, thank you very much.
He better have been on a leash.
Yeah.
Okay, back to the warrant. Oh, are these?
We have.
Okay. Oh, these are one.
They're the same.
Okay. Anybody not get one? Liz, why don't you take the extra? Okay, 72 is Education Reserve Fund. I'm not quite sure why this is here. We used to appropriate money into the stabilization fund in the past from the school budget, which we transfer it really. And then, but it always happened the next year they took it all out again. But I think they have new legislation which allows them to create a stabilization fund within the school department and then roll it. So I'm not quite sure why this is here. Christine and Dean, when you have them come in, could you ask them why this is needed, or just
Excuse me, car illegally parked on the corner, a Honda?
It's fine.
Yes.
You needed to move it? Okay. Excuse me. Sorry to be that big, guys.
Okay, so if you could ask them if it's needed. Now, if you find out within the next day or so that they don't want it, could you let me know immediately, and I'll see if I can get this knocked out, so we have one less article to deal with. Okay, and if it is needed, if they could explain that when they come in for to talk about their budget. Okay. Okay, 70. Okay. Now most of the rest are fairly straightforward. Overlay reserve is for the finance team, especially the one who's dealing with the Board of Assessors. Appropriated sum of funds. Okay, so this is funds, and I think they've told they've passed this on to the manager in the 5-year plan, so if we could nail that down. Transfer of funds cemetery, so that's Christine, yourself, and Charlie for the capital budget. Use of free cash, so that typically is half. Appropriation of the Cannabis Mitigation Stabilization Fund. At the request of the Finance Committee? Okay, that's not us.
What were you smoking?
I don't.
It was high time we made that.
But wouldn't that be coupled with a local option tax?
I just want to get, well, whatever. Okay, so Liz, when you're having people deal with the article about the regulations, whoever comes maybe can speak to this too also. So we try to group those together. Can't remember which article it is. Well, let's see if we can figure out which the other article is. Okay, long-term stabilization, that has usually been, we've been putting in 100,000 each year. Appropriation Fiscal Stability Stabilization Fund. This is where we've been putting money in for 6 or 7 years. Now we're taking it out again. Resolution Indigenous Peoples Day. I think we can let the selectmen hear that. And resolution on parking exemption program for medical and financial, and that's a selectman article. Okay, so those are all the articles. Liz, try to fit as many hearings as you can over the next couple of weeks on that. Again, the manager will be in and we'll lock the door and not let him out until he's gone through all these different articles. So I'm gonna talk to him tomorrow to make sure he realizes that. Okay, we have the Arlington Open Space Committee. You've heard their testimony. What is the will of the committee?
$300
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to appropriate $300 for the Arlington Open Space Committee. Discussion. We can't have our committees going around begging for bits and pieces. Okay, all those in favor of appropriation for $300 for the open space, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, unanimous. So Liz, when the article is on the committees and commissions, add the Open Space Study Committee into that article with the $300. Okay, hearing. Okay, we're moving along fairly rapidly through this. Does anybody have any budgets to present?
Police and fire.
You got police and fire done? Okay, wow. Well, I saw Peter's hand first, though.
Well, let's start with the first article, for the first budget, I mean. Finance Committee, on page 20. Page 20.
Page 20, okay.
We recommend it as printed. It's the same as last year, except for a cost of living increase of 2% for our hardworking executive secretary. So that total is 10,650.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions, discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, unanimous. Okay, Peter? I'm sorry, David?
I'll do the one with Peter, with zoning appeals. It's a quick one, it's on page 77.
Zoning Board of Appeals. Okay. Everybody there?
Okay, just a slight increase, but it's for 34,413. That's what's recommended.
So the increase was cost of living?
Yes, it's salary adjustments and wage increases.
Okay.
And if you notice on the page 79, they're still carrying that position as vacant. They're still in discussion with the town manager as to what exactly, how they want to make a new position that would include the part-time work of the zoning appeal board's person, along with the other work done to the building, zoning and appeals, and there's another situation where they've been looking up back records, so they're tracing back records per request of an individual. So they want to take this job. They had a person, and then the person at the last minute dropped out of it. So that's why it's still being carried as vacant, but yet someone is doing the work. On a part-time basis, there's a gentleman that actually works per diem for the legal department.
How long has it been since it was
I
filled?
can't hear you.
How long has it been since it was a full-time?
Well, it actually wasn't a full-time, but what they did was they combined, if you will, two part-time positions. They attempted to, but that didn't work out the way they wanted it to, because the person one person left and went to the selectman's office. That's the person that's still being carried, but the money was being spent while they find this new person that they were combining a job. When they found the new person, apparently that didn't work out. So now they're looking for another person to do the same thing. So it's been, the work is being done, but it's not as one, it's all over the place.
Okay. So your recommendation as printed?
Yes.
34,413.
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any questions or discussion?
I'm just curious, operationally, is there an office for this person? Is the per diem person that is probably on Pleasant Street with the town attorney, right? So is there an office that this person
They
sits
also
at Grove Street?
work out of the building department.
At Grove Street.
So that's where their desk is?
When they're working.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions? Okay, motion's been made and seconded for 34,413. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, favorable action, unanimous. 2/11/19. Okay. Next.
Go ahead.
We visited the planning department today and over their budget, which is on page 72. We recommended as printed. Didn't find any mistakes. There are some changes that are moderately interesting. You'll see on page under salaries, there's a new line, 5160 stipends, and I think you'll find that many other budgets have stipend lines too. according to Mr. Pooler, he thinks this is a more honest way to budget the requirement that's in some of the union agreements to provide some money for clothing. So at least it's a number that would be, that would go along with payments, so with salaries, I mean, so perhaps that makes sense, but how you want to handle it, I don't know.
In which category is that?
It's the fourth line from the top.
Oh, stipend, okay, I'm sorry, yeah.
It looks like there was a budget last year for it.
I don't know what those last year things were. I forgot to ask.
Well, we probably brought them up from below
Yeah, the stipends have always
to make
been
it
there.
consistent.
The stipends have always been there, they're just using a GL line item to show them now.
The department has fewer union people than it had before, so that would be consistent with the number going down somewhat.
Questions? Could you explain the school offset?
Yes, the school offset. If you go down to the next page where the salaries of people are, you'll see energy project manager. I should have said to begin with that for the first time in several years, this is a fully staffed department. People have been coming and going, and there's been many a gap. But right now, they're all there, and I would say they're an attractive group. Anyway, Pruitt will only he will work half his time to support the school department. So that increase in you see school offset, the bottom of the list of offsets is that number that is the increase in the line you asked about, offset line.
So in prior time, he was focusing entirely on town facilities?
This is a new person, and I think the job has been changed a little bit.
Okay.
He was in a different department, they moved him. He was in the building department, facilities department.
Okay, other questions?
Do all these people work at the town hall annex?
The people on this list?
Yeah.
Yes, they do. I guess I should mention that there's an urban renewal project, so-called, that's been in place for at least 30 years. And that's off this budget. So there are some people that have a foot in each area.
Planning department, they get a lot of grants. Where do those show up on budgets?
They don't.
Now, generally, grants are sort of off budget, under the jurisdiction of the manager, but we don't do an appropriation unless sometimes, like you see the community development block grant, that's put as an offset to support a town-funded position. So we'll put those there, but a lot of times they get grants for doing X, Y, and Z, which is temporary. It's only going to last until the grant. Usually those aren't in the budgets.
So the town got a couple $100,000 for stormwater management. They'll put staff time from the planning department against that grant. Will that show up here, or how will that staff time be you know, when the town reports to the state to say, we put 50 hours of engineer time and the state reimburses for that time, how does that?
I think here what you see is stuff that's grants that are continually supporting the regular town budgets. So in this case, you've got a planning offset and an affordable housing offset that go against these staff positions on a regular basis going out. Now, if community development block grant money ever stopped, then obviously this would have to be redone. We either have to support the positions with our own money, or we'd have to cut or reduce the positions on that. Oh, why I'm thinking of this, Liz, if you can call the open space study people who are here, just let them know the finance committee supported their request. Okay, are there any other questions here? Alan?
Could you just remind me what the conservation offset is, the 4971?
The Conservation Commission charges the people that come asking for their review a modest amount. They collect that and put it against their costs. That used to be a standalone, but a few years ago it was rolled into the rest of the budget here. So the staff person that supports the Conservation Commission is that environmental planner, second from the bottom. I think that person does other things too, but that's one part of the job. I should mention that building craftsman, there still is such a person, used to spend a good deal of his time at Gibbs. That's a school department building now. So the building craftsman is not part of the planning department anymore, and that person hangs out at facilities.
And should probably be in that budget, right?
Should be in
Yeah. Okay, any other questions on this? So, Peter, are you recommending as billed or as printed?
Yes.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any other questions or discussion? Okay, all those, so the motion is for $556,049. Favorable action is recommended and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, unanimous. 2/11/19. And for the new people, when I call it unanimous or whatever, if you're not in favor of it, you got to speak up. Otherwise, it goes into the record as unanimous. Okay, Peter, David.
That's it.
Redevelopment board.
Okay, what page?
That's on page 76. No change in that, it's the same as last year. It's 10,800.
Oh, that's right. Redevelopment board. And there used to be buildings under this also, that the redevelopment board is responsible for. But they've been moved to facilities also starting this coming year.
Okay.
They're just two, Parmenter and the Dowden Library.
Okay, so redevelopment board, 10,800. David, is that what you're recommending?
That's recommended, yes.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Questions? Charlie?
Doesn't the Director of Planning and Community Development also serve as the Executive Director of the Redevelopment Board? I'm just wondering why there's...
She supports the board, but she's never shown... the board doesn't have any independent source of funds.
Maybe she does the work, but it's paid under planning. Any other questions? Redevelopment board? Okay, appropriation recommendation is for 10,800. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Favorable action? Unanimous? 211-19.
And
Okay.
that's it for now, but we'll be back.
I know you will be. Okay, so you're, okay, public safety.
I'll do the police and John's gonna do fire. Police budget, its size notwithstanding, is pretty uneventful.
What page?
Oh, I'm sorry, 115. Under salaries, the only significant change, and this is in terms of percentage, not really in terms of dollars, is the 51031 minimum bikeway patrol. That's going up to $400. Apparently, there's been requests from the community for increased patrols on the bikeway, and so that's how they're dealing with that. They're buying two more bikes, which is down in the equipment expense line. And then under expenses and teleprocessing, 5251, the increases there, the $2,300 is just due to.
I'm sorry, could you speak?
I'm sorry, the 5251 teleprocessing, that's just going up because of increased maintenance costs under their contract. And then under equipment, the $9,200 is the two bikes. They're $4,500 each. Apparently, they have to be pretty much tricked out to provide the police department's needs.
Are these bikes like roar, or are these bikes
No,
pedal?
these are bicycles.
They're actually e-bikes.
Yeah, yes, they're e-bikes. Yeah.
Oh, they have the little battery pack?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Well, it'd be embarrassing if they ever got caught in the police chase and out and. Then on page 118 under personnel, down at the bottom, they have 3 vacancies. They actually had 4, and they sent 4 new officers to the academy, and unfortunately 3 of them washed out, which I guess is highly unusual. So in addition to having to repost this year, they're outplaced the cost of salary and the academy charges for them, so that was obviously disappointing. And that was really about it. The new acting police chief is obviously filling big shoes, but seems to be doing fine. They were asking us questions about budgeting, which is a little, but they're new, so they're learning it. So I moved the budget as printed.
Okay, so 8,236,412.
235,
230. I'm sorry, 8,235,412. Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion, questions?
The town has an officer who spends most of his day with the FBI.
Yes.
And I thought there was some sort of compensation from the FBI, but I'm not exactly sure the mechanics of that. Do you know how that works?
No, we didn't.
I know, being a retired policeman, if you will, the money comes back, but it goes into the general fund. It doesn't go back to the police. But that office has been assigned to the FBI for a good number of years.
So, do you know how much it is? But it comes? Somebody's
Well,
checking that it comes?
It comes, but there's also, depending upon, there's actually 2 officers. One officer assigned to the FBI, but I don't know if that's the one you're talking about. One is with the DEA. One is with the FBI, one is with the DEA. monies generated from, as a result of court actions, a percentage will come back to the communities whose offices are involved. That's all I really know. But when it gets back, it goes to general fund. The other one is, the specialty is exploited children.
Yeah, that was the one.
That's it, yeah. He's been doing it for quite a number of years.
Well, we did get the money.
If there's anything yet.
Okay, Charlie?
So, Captain Flaherty is the acting chief, and I heard or read in the paper or whatever that it's expected that that position wouldn't be filled for pretty much a year. But we have the chief position budgeted and a vacant position where Captain Flaherty was budgeted for the full year. Is that a surplus?
No, I think that there's somebody, people just keep moving up. So her position will get filled, and then that person's position will get filled.
So my understanding is that they're gonna move a lieutenant up. to
As
fill-
an
to
acting
fill her
captain?
Captain, right, as an acting captain, and move a sergeant up to fill the lieutenant position.
Okay, so then we have an extra patrol person or something? I'm just wondering, somewhere there's there's an open slot that's budgeted.
It will end up the way it would end up as a patrolman slot.
I guess so, yeah.
Because if it's up.
I was just wondering what the relationship of all that was to the, isn't there a section here called out of grade pay? Yeah. Is that, there's nothing budgeted for out of grade pay. I don't know, I mean, it just strikes me that there's a number of $100,000 or more in the budget that is gonna be an open slot for a year, somehow. Maybe it's less than that because everybody's temporarily moving up, but there's still a substantial numbers.
I can follow up with that.
There is $1,500 on out of grade.
Yeah, I know, but we're talking about 180 or something like that, 150.
You know, because right now we have 3 vacancies.
Yeah,
And-
okay. Well, there's a problem there. Well, those are vacancies. So what happened to you said we spent that money, okay, that was last year. We spent the money and it was a loss, but we have three other vacancies. So there's really 4 positions that are unfilled. Now, probably the officer positions, the new officer positions will get filled sooner than the positions at the top. I don't know, but I just wondering about that.
Well, the total number of positions is staying the same. We're appropriating for the same number of positions that we have in the past. So even though there's a lot of temporary movement, it shouldn't cost more than it did before.
I'm wondering if it should cost less, is my question.
Well, the total budget for 19 was what, call it 190,000. And now it's 175. So there's 15,000, I suppose. Dean?
So we had this discussion, if you recall, several years ago in the community. We asked Chief Ryan at the time about this very thing. I think I might have even asked. And what he pointed out at the time was actually, this is a long time ago, because Dan was still on the committee. And he sat here, that's why I pointed here. So some people think it's weird, they're pointing at a chair. So what Chief said at the time is, there's a relationship between, vacant positions and overtime. So if we take the vacant positions and we strike them out of the budget, those shifts have to be covered, the work has to get done. So what we have to do is then we have to increase the amount of overtime. And so we had this philosophical discussion about whether we'd rather have the positions in there knowing that the chief is going to use some of those unallocated dollars to cover overtime? Or do we rather put it into overtime, and then when they get hired, have to move it out? And I think what we determined at the time was keeping it in as vacant, knowing these positions will be filled somewhat. In the interim, they'll be used for overtime. It's a better way to do it than having the total org chart sort of work like an accordion where it shrinks and grows and shrinks and grows.
Yeah, I think I remember that. Stephen?
Yeah, and actually, if you look at the overtime actual amounts for the past 2 years, it's between $115,000, $160,000 greater than what the ask is for fiscal 2020. So that's,
Yeah, and it's like, you're right, it shows up perfectly here, because if you notice, the salaries and wages are actually lower than what's budgeted, and the overtime's higher. So it can work in unison.
Okay, any other
Well,
questions?
They're definitely looking to fill the 3 vacancies, so I think the only question is what they will do with the vacancy that frees up with the musical chairs.
Yeah.
How
Well,
often-
That answers my question though, so I don't, yeah.
Okay.
Fine.
Annie?
Thank you,
Okay,
Dean.
so this is probably another beginner's question, but just listening to the colloquy here between John and Dave about the idea that we have these positions for which we get some reimbursement, and that reimbursement goes into the general fund, and then I'm hearing nobody knows whether or not we got the money. We don't have some revenue line that tells us what reimbursements of that kind are every year into the general fund?
I mean, we can get a revenue report, and breakdown. I haven't done it for a year or two, but, you know, that could be gotten probably from the definitely from the controller.
Okay. So that's one question, and the other question is, Dave, if I understand what you're saying correctly, there's no certainty that those reimbursements for the time spent by these officers assigned to these other.
Annie, could you speak up just a little bit, please?
So there's no certainty that the reimbursements provided for these officers assigned to these federal task forces or whatever will match what we're paying them in salary, regardless of whether or not they're spending time with us or spending time with the feds. Are they literally full-time federal assignments? They're not in Arlington at all?
One is and one is.
Okay.
One I have not seen in 10 years,
Okay.
but I know he's here.
I mean,
Okay.
you know he appears on our camera.
Okay? There's a reason for that.
I get it.
Okay, so-
I'm sure I don't need an effective explanation for the reason. It sounds reasonable to me. I'm just wondering whether or not we shouldn't be paying attention to how much we're getting reimbursed for.
I don't know, I'm assuming that that's all done through the administration of the police department and the town manager's office.
Okay.
But I think that's where the question should be asked, probably at the town manager's office. I'm gonna assume, and I'm just assuming this, that perhaps the new folks in charge, going back, they were asking you questions, they might be asking the same questions. Because it would be new to them, but it won't be new to Sandy or Dan.
The budget mechanics might be new to them.
The what?
The budget mechanics might be new
Yeah,
to them. I
yeah.
assume the fact that these two officers are assigned wouldn't be new.
No, well, they know the
Or
office.
both.
But that's been a long-term, so it's not something new.
I'd be interested in that control report.
Me too.
I'm sorry, the
Control report that you said would show the incoming funds.
Revenue breakdown.
Right from the comptroller.
Yep.
I'm sure it's very unpredictable, part of, judgments that come back.
I'm sure it is too. I'd be interested in seeing it, if possible, a multi-year version of it.
Now, are you asking for a breakdown of all the general revenues for the town? Or are you looking for grant reimbursements?
I'm looking for whatever's easiest for the comptroller to produce. If a comprehensive report is easier than to go ferret out particular line items, then I can read a comprehensive report. But I'd like it to be fairly detailed.
Okay,
Thank you.
I'll ask for that. Okay, are you satisfied on the FBI?
Oh, yeah.
I could just see the FBI at some point requesting reimbursement from the town of Arlington since.
No, no. Not
I'm sorry,
interested in
John?
upsetting the apple cart.
I have a question if we're done with that subject.
Yeah.
I'm just, what is teleprocessing included? Is it computers too?
Yeah.
Or just phones?
Computers.
Computers.
It's a legacy term.
Can we get them to update that term?
The state still uses terms like data entry processor.
And it went up because they're getting new computers or
No, it's,
more expensive?
their maintenance contracts are going up.
Actually, if I understand it correctly, the controller is looking to update the whole chart of accounts. Who is the controller's budget?
I do.
Might ask if they're going to update a lot of any of the terminology when you get to them. I remember one that was one line called microfiche.
So, if I can just make a comment, I think the teleprocessing is the maintenance on their dispatch system, which is getting replaced.
The dispatch and then the report writer and the various miscellaneous systems they use.
It'd be easier to understand if they just use the words information systems, which is what those are.
Bureaucratic terminology moves very slowly.
Software too? Like
Okay, are there any additional questions on
That's
the?
software too, like programs they use for?
Yeah, it's the support contracts for, so for example, they have a report writer QED, that the support for that is on that line item.
Okay, are there any additional questions on the police budget?
Can you call a vote before there's more questions?
I'll second that.
Okay, the police budget, I believe, has been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor of $8,235,412, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, favorable action. Unanimous. 1119. Yes?
Fire, page 123. Like the police budget, it is large, but for the most part uneventful. The salaries.
That didn't work for me.
Salaries overall are budgeted to increase 3.7%. For the most part, those are collective bargaining agreement-driven increases. And they are budgeting level funding on the expense side. And so I would move the budget as printed.
Okay.
Oh, and I checked, they have 3 vacancies, they are all budgeted at minimum salary.
Okay. Also for, police and fire overtime. So if you could continue to track those, so we're not surprised when the reserve fund transfer requests come in and let them, do they think they'll need any transfers this year, and sort of keep an eye on it, that's all.
There wasn't an issue with police, fire, they're still working through
Yeah.
it. They have, how many fires did they expect that?
It was, 6 retirements in fiscal year 19.
Including the chief, so that one's gonna be pretty
Yeah.
expensive.
Okay, so your recommendation as printed, 7,656,174?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion, questions? Grant?
Don't remember this. Where's the offset come from? I understand the other one comes from parking.
We were just
Ambulance.
Ambulance.
Ambulances?
It's a revolving fund.
Got it. So I don't see teleservices, is that's handled by the police department?
Here they use data processing expenses.
Well, they have a computer maintenance line item, 5206. And again, it's all level funded.
There's no increased support.
But if I call the report of fire, somebody's gonna answer the phone, which is really 911 dispatch. Where is that money? Is that in the police department? Tele-
Yeah. They don't have a
service,
separate, they don't have a
teleservice.
separate fund.
That's what I was getting at.
Other questions and discussion? Okay. Motion's made and seconded for $7,656,174. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
Other inspections, next time, there's one personnel issue that I need to confirm that they're resolved.
And you'll get the projected revenue history, same last year, this year, projected from
Yeah.
inspections?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, and the dispatchers are within,
The police money.
No, that's what
oh, there they are, okay. Okay, are there any other budgets that are ready? Okay, please, move along with this. The more hearings and budgets we can get done in February, the less stressful our March would be. And when we get to the big ticket items, we could spend a little bit more time. So if you could move along on this. Is there any further business to be done? Okay, in that case, I adjourn the meeting of the Arlington Finance Committee.